Hi everybody and welcome to the ProBuilder geometry creation and editing tutorial. So here we're going to look through all the options you have when doing the building and editing of geometry within ProBuilder. So first of all, very basics, of course, we want to spawn in a ProBuilder object since you have to have one in order to do any of the editing. Remember, you can't edit non-ProBuilder objects. So to do this, just hit Control K on your keyboard, and it will spawn in the basic ProBuilder cube. And you can also get a little fancier with this and hit Control Shift K to bring up the shape panel, which you can use to create a number of more complex objects. You will also notice that you have the shape preview show up in the scene view, and this you can move, rotate, or scale, do anything you'd like to set it up so you can better preview how the object is actually going to be in your world or in your scene. So here you have a number of options. You can have stairs, and then you can set anything from number of steps to width, height, etc. Turn on and off the everything except the platforms if you prefer. Lots of great options, and the same goes for any of these other items. All sorts of great ways to quickly build fairly complex geometry, which you can use to save yourself a lot of time and trouble. So those are there, be sure to give them a look through, and we have all the options listed out in the documentation as well, of course. Once you have the object ready, once you have it set to exactly as you need it to be, you can just go ahead and click on Build Arch, or it will say, let's say it's prism, build prism, stair, etc. Just click on Build, and it will pop into your world as you have it set. I'm going to delete this for now, and we'll just stick with the regular cube for this tutorial to keep things simpler. As mentioned in the fundamentals of ProBuilder tutorial, which hopefully you have watched already, we have the two basic editing modes, object and element. Element being where you can edit the individual elements or sub-objects, as you might know them if you're a 3D Studio Max user, and object being just standard Unity controls essentially. Though there are a number of geometry edits that you can do directly from the object level without even being in the elements. So we'll look at those first before we move into all the more complex options within the individual element modes. So back up here in object mode, which again you can get to by either clicking directly on it in the indicator up top, or if you're in an element mode, you can hit escape and it will exit right up to the top level object mode. Or lastly, you can click on the button of the current element you are in, just like so. Now I'm back up to object mode. We have a number of options here at the top. Number one is merge, and this is going to, just like it sounds, merge two different ProBuilder objects into one. So I'll just make a quick duplicate of this object, two separate objects here. I click on merge, I can choose delete or save. Delete is going to get rid of the originals, save will keep them hidden in the scene. I'll use delete here. And now we have one single ProBuilder object, which I can edit. Nothing changes, it's still a regular ProBuilder object. Let's undo that, so we just have the one. Below that is the mirror option. For this, I'll make this cube look a little more interesting and have something that makes sense to merge. So let's say this was maybe something like that. And we wanted to make an exact copy of it except mirrored over. Click on the mirror option, and it'll bring up this tool here, and you can choose which axis you want it to merge, mirror along, and just click on mirror. I'll use the Z, and there it is. It automatically creates a duplicate for you. No need to worry about that yourself. Let's delete that duplicate and go back to our object here. Below that you have the flip normals option. Clicking on that will flip the normals on all faces on the object at once. Just like so. Below that there is subdivide, which will take all the faces and instantly divide them up by 4. Click on that like so. And now we have all individual faces here divided up. If I go in and choose, you can see they've been divided like such. I will undo that, just so we have a little simpler geometry to work with. Last of the geometry options in object mode is set pivot. So in object mode, if you click on set pivot, it will simply move like that, the pivot to the very center of the object that is selected. Nothing special, but very handy, especially if you need it to move or rotate right around the very center or scale. Moving on to the element modes, there's quite a bit more that we can then edit. So first, I'll just click on the vertex button up top here, and we'll start editing by the vertices. Actually, on top of this, one thing to note, up here, this is the handle coordinates, which you can set once you are in an actual element mode, because that's the only thing they're going to affect. So right here in the dynamic GUI, you can choose between plane, local, and world. World is the standard option, and this means when you are editing things, it's going to move or rotate or scale relative to the world space coordinates. So if you look at the gizmo in the top right here, this is going to match that always. So even if I rotate the entire object to some crazy degree or some such, it's still matching the world coordinates there. Also, it doesn't matter what the angle of the face is, it's just going to match that. So that's generally the default use and is what I tend to use most often. You can switch that to plane, and as you can see there, now this matches the actual plane that this is on. This is very useful for moving things along like such if you needed to make something that is supposed to be following a path, etc., and you need it to continuously do so. So plane is definitely a useful option. If you switch that to local, it's going to use the local coordinates of the object itself. So now it ignores the plane and simply follows the object. So if I click on this and then if we exit to object mode, you can see that is the transform direction of the object itself that it's using. And once again, that will follow all through through all of the element modes. As you can see, it stays the same right there. So let's once again undo all these crazy edits we just added, and then maybe reset the rotation as well, just so we have a simple object to work with here. Elements, once again, are vertex, edge, and face, and all of these can be edited in very similar ways with a few special options that you can see changing in the new dynamic GUI based on which mode I'm in, or which submode that is. So just like standard Unity controls, you can drag select, whether it's verts, edges, or faces. If you click on any item, you can select it directly, or hold shift to select multiple, and holding shift will deselect. You can also use hold shift and drag select to select or deselect again. These are standard Unity controls. We wanted to make sure that you really have the very smallest learning curve when you're first moving into ProBuilder. Something else is that you can click on any face, whether you are in vert, edge, or face mode, and it will select that entire actual face, just like such, or in edge mode. So that's a handy shortcut when you need to select an entire face. This will also allow you to do actions that are normally reserved for faces only. For example, in face mode, I can select this, or actually this one I'll use, and I can do things like holding shift to extrude it in and out, etc. But in edge mode or vertex mode, or specifically, let's stick with vertex mode for this example, if I simply select these vertices, I can't do that since it doesn't know the exact face. However, if I click on the face directly, I can then use the normally face only tools. So this is extremely handy for doing quick edits and when you don't want to swap between the element options. And we'll look at that extrude functionality a bit more when we get onto the face options a bit further as we get past vertex and edge. So moving back to the GUI options here, you might be noticing, and again it was mentioned in the previous tutorials, that the GUI in 2.3, version 2.3 is now completely dynamic. It's a smart GUI that takes care of a lot of things for you. So it's going to only show you the options that are actually available for what you are currently working with, and only for the current mode that you are in. So this means we can pack all the possible information into there that you could need, but nothing that's extra. So really, we really hope people like that. Definitely let us know. It's not quite as pretty as before maybe, but definitely works a lot better. So in this case, with that dynamic GUI, there's a lot of items that overlap. You can see a few things changes, but some do overlap. And in this case, for the tutorial, I'm just going to walk through all the options in each one of the modes, but you'll notice that a few of them, like I said, do overlap. Just keep notice of that as we go. So first, if we jump past the handle coordinates and then past the tools palettes options, we get into the selection options area here. So I can click on grow, and just like it sounds, it's going to grow the selection outward from your selection. Maybe better if I select a single vertex here and then just grow outward. You can also shrink to do the opposite, or click on invert to select the invert of whatever it is you currently have selected. And those are the selection options in vertex mode. Below that, we have the full actions items. These are all the actions that are available, the geometry actions that are available in the current element mode. And at the top will always be set pivot. So set pivot works in all element modes, and what it will do is set the pivot of the object exactly to the center of the elements you have selected. So if I have a single element selected, I can click set pivot, and the pivot is now right there. If I have multiple elements selected, let's say I'll just grab a few here or a pile of them, click on set pivot, and now the pivot is at the center of that selection. And once again, as we'll mention in edge and face mode, it works the same for those. Below set pivot, if I select, say, a face, I can click on extrude to directly extrude that face by an exact amount. And you can set that amount by clicking the plus sign and set this to maybe 0.25, and now it will extrude exactly that amount. Once again, just to mention, that will only work if you have an actual face selected by clicking on it directly. If you drag select, it grays out so that you can't accidentally call that function. Below extrude, we also have another face item, flip normals. So if I select a face by clicking on it in vertex mode, I can flip the face normals on just that one face. It looks like it's deleted, but maybe if I let's try and find a better one to flip. On the bottom here, I can flip this around, and looking from the inside, you can see it's just flipped up like so. And of course, you can do that on multiple faces at once if you'd like to, just like that. And then we have delete below that, so I can click on a face or multiple, delete it. I can also, let me undo that flip I had on the bottom, there we go. I can also directly detach faces. What detach does is takes the face itself, and I'll actually move into face mode to make this a little more obvious here. It detaches it either to a brand new object or as a submesh. So if I choose submesh, now this is broken off from the others, and I can edit it as a separate piece if I'd like to. If, however, let's grab, say, these faces here. If I detach that as a new object, it now becomes a completely separate object. Let's set that pivot better, there we go, that I can edit separately from the other one, and it's not attached at all. Let's just undo those edits. We are back to the simpler object here. Okay. And we'll move back into vertex mode. So below the detach, we get into the vertex specific options finally. And here we have connect, weld, collapse, and split. So connect is going to be used to connect any two vertices directly. For example, if I have this vertex and this one, and I want to connect them so there is a direct edge between these two. If I go to edge mode, I can see that there isn't currently. And come to think of it, this object is getting a bit too complex. I'm going to restart with something simpler, so we can see this a bit more easily. So again, we have these two edges here, our vertices, I mean. In edge mode, you can see there's no connections between there, but maybe I want to pull that up as a triangle. So I select those two vertices and click on connect, and it's going to put a edge directly between them, just like that. Below the connect option is weld. So if I have a vert that is very close to another, and I would like them to weld together, I can choose this option, and just like the extrude option, I can set the max distance. So right now I'll leave it at a full 1 meter, select the two verts that I would like to weld together, and click on weld. And they'll go right together like that. Below weld is the collapse function. So anytime you have more than one verts selected, that will become available. And what collapse does is, regardless of distance, regardless of anything at all really, it will simply collapse them down to 1 point, just like that. So it's kind of a super version of weld that just instantly collapses them all down, like so. The opposite of that is split. So if I select a vertex or more than one and click on split, you won't see anything happening right away. But then if I take these faces and move them apart, you can see that it has that vertex has been split into its three, one per each face that it was attached to, or edge, however you want to you'd like to think about it. And that's it for the vertex options. Remember that there are shortcut keys for almost all of these items, and you can customize many of those as well. For example, Alt-C being that collapse option. Moving to edge mode, you'll notice that we have a lot of the same options. Again, there's grow to grow the selection outward, shrink to do the opposite, and then invert to again select the inverse. We also have two new options here, loop and ring. To make these more obvious, I'll just pull these out a little bit, make some extra polys. So loop is going to select a, you can think of it as a line of edges. If I click on loop, selects along like that. And ring will select all the way around in a ring, just as it sounds, like that. So these are just handy ways of changing your selection quickly so that you can edit it more easily. Below that we have again the set pivot option. So just like in vertex mode, you click on set pivot and it will set the pivot right to the center of your selection. Back into edge mode here, you have extrude, which is going to work if you have an open edge selected. So here, if we want to do this, we're going to need to delete a face by hitting backspace, or you can click delete on it. Select the edge, and something like in edge mode, you can hold shift and extrude it. Oops, wrong arrow. Just like that. And this is a really quick and powerful way of creating complex geometry. You can select multiple edges, hold them up, and then you can create quite interesting things using this. Once again, you can still use rotate and scale at the same time. Again, very similar to being in face mode. We try to keep things simple so you don't have to relearn everything. But this is something to definitely use for a lot of your projects. It's just a great way to quickly create that complex geometry. Similar to the face extrusion, you can extrude by an exact amount if you like, and it will instantly do that, just like so, based on the number you set. Pretty simple to use there. Just remember that you have to have an open face in order to use this on an edge. So this would be a closed face here, but if I select any face, or sorry, need a an open edge. So this is an open edge now. It only has a face on one side, and I can use that to do the extrusion option, like so. Below the extrude option, we have, again, flip normals. You can, oops, back to edge mode here. Flip any normals just the same as you would in, it's flipped there, just as you would in vertex or face mode. And below that we have delete and detach, the same as face mode, and bridge we begin to get some of the extra options for edge modeling or the edge editing. So if I have any two faces and I'd like to essentially connect them or repair the deleted face, I click on bridge and it will bridge right across instantly like so. And of course all those the verts are now welded up automatically. Oops, just need to select only these two and bridge them across, just like that. Below bridge there is connect, so I can select any number of edges. Let's say maybe these, just to make it interesting, and click on connect, and it will throw in a new loop directly through the center of all the edges selected. If you have quite a few edges that you'd like to connect all around in a new ring, you can just click on insert loop and it will automatically do that as far as it can around. So if I select these and do the same thing here, it goes all the way around in all directions that it can. So that's a great way to quickly add extra detail. Again, I can maybe grab these and start giving this a more organic shape if I'd like to. Using those edge loops is definitely one of the best new options in ProBuilder that you can really add quite a bit with. And once again, just to mention, any of these edges you can edit exactly the same as anything else in Unity. Nothing special. You can rotate it, or sorry, you can scale it, you can rotate it, move it, all the usual. There's nothing special about these except except everything they are, but you don't have to learn anything extra to use them. They're just the same as any other Unity object. And we make sure and try and keep things that way, to keep it nice and simple. So moving from that on to the face mode, here pretty much everything has actually been covered other than one single item. So again, we have shrink, invert, set, pivot, grow, or actually two items I suppose. Under grow we get a new option. So if I select a face, let's say this one here, you can now set an angle for the grow. With the checkbox on, it will only grow if the adjacent face has an angle difference less than the number I set. So by clicking grow here, looks like this is just a bit over that. Let's set it to a little lower number, maybe 45. And as I click grow, it's only going to select, in this case, just the bottom. The final option within the face element is subdivide. So this one also quite useful. Select any face or multiple faces and click on subdivide face, and it will instantly break it down into 4 more, which then you can use to edit however you like, of course. And that is it for geometry options as of ProBuilder version 2.3 anyway. We'll definitely be adding more and more, of course, all the time, and send us your suggestions for anything else you'd like to see and we'll try and get to it. Obviously we have quite a large to-do list, but hopefully the new GUI makes it much simpler for everyone to use all these options now, as well as the tool is now expanding and growing quite quickly. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the future UV editing tutorials and all the others as well. Hopefully definitely worth it to watch through those before you really dig into the tool, since there's so much more it can do than if you might have looked at it in the past. So thanks for watching, and see you in the future tutorials.